Let's move back to really where we started and talk about money and the new schemes that are coming up and what you're doing to get ready for that. The schemes in England, we're going to have the Sustainable Farming Incentive, SFI. Pretty basic, we think. Obviously, details, you might know more than me on this, Stuart. Details a bit scant. How will that affect your farm, or not at all?
So look, if I look at it in terms of my own farm, at the moment, I still need more details. I still need decent pay rates, and then I'll have a proper look at it. As we sit at the moment, what I'm trying to do in my business is actually I'm simplifying the business. I'm working more with the end customer, as we touched earlier with John, and that's what will help my business. I want to have focus on where does my business need to be in 10 years' time, and that's about simplification, that's about more engagement, shortening that supply chain within my business. If there's government schemes in years to come that may help me, then that's fine, but I'm not going to design my business around those schemes. Those schemes, if they fit with my business model, great. If they don't, then they're for somebody else.
I agree with everything that Stuart said. The only thing I would say about the Sustainable Farming Incentive is that one of the schemes that I thought worked incredibly well was the old OELS scheme, and it was really criticised because it was broad and shallow. But what it actually did was it engaged with farmers. I think it had something like a 70% take-up. So it wasn't just those of us who were going to do it anyway were doing it, it was everybody was doing it. And suddenly you had all these fantastic wildlife corridors, margins, not just going from my farm, but all my neighbours' farms as well. And I'm absolutely convinced that the reason why we've got barn owls back in a big way is because we had all these absolutely fantastic corridors. So, even though I wouldn't say that the Sustainable Farming Incentive is showing any sort of real ambition as far as, complete sort of nature recovery is concerned, is that I think it's important. And I think, if it's a simple thing that can engage with most people and just get people doing it for probably quite a low level of payment, then I think it could be very interesting.
So I think the other thing for me in this is that whatever we have has got to be resourced well enough. We've got to put enough money into it. If we try and do it on the cheap, it won't work. But the balance is that over the next few years, we are going to be under huge pressure. We've got COVID to pay for. For the first time in my life, probably, agriculture's budget is going to have to compete with the NHS, with schools, with hospitals, with things that actually historically it hasn't had to because of the way it's been funded. But if government want to do this right, they have got to put money into it. We need to be making the case for the value you get from that. And where I slightly worry at the moment is that if we're not careful, we'll end up funding a relatively small number of really big, really sexy projects that arguably people will have huge legacies, when actually we will have walked away from some of the stuff you've touched on, John, some of the stuff that can happen on every farm. Because what I do know is every single farmer I come across, and genuinely everyone, whether they be organic, whether they be regenerative, whether they be agroecology, whether they be conventional, we're all part of a farming family. And every single one of those wants to do the right thing for the environment. And we've got to make sure that those schemes are in place to help every one of those, not just a select few with a few high-profile political priorities of the day.
Although they've made it clear that you'll have this the SFI at the bottom, if you like. Some conservationists have criticised it for not being ambitious enough. There are other views. Then you'll have local nature recovery, and then on top of that, the landscape recovery, which is the big projects that they're talking about. They're talking about 10 of those, I think, the big ones you were talking about. So in the middle, the local nature recovery, is that an opportunity for organic farmers, even if their neighbours aren't organic, John?
I personally think it's an opportunity for all farmers, and we've actually just started. We have a first sort of in-person meeting on this Thursday. We're setting up this cluster, sort of centred around sort of river valleys and ancient woodlands, and it's going to involve all different kinds of farmers. You don't have to be organic. I mean, I think the most important thing, if we go back to the sustainable farming incentive, is there's got to be cohesion, which is why I think it's incredibly important that farmers do work together, because then you start making changes on a sort of a landscape scale. And the reason why I'm excited about the middle tier bit is that I think that's going to deliver something really spectacular. But I think that it has to be delivered on a landscape scale. It also gets businesses, small farmers, large farmers, medium-sized farmers in the same room talking, so they deliver the environmental benefits, but actually something else always comes from those meetings, sharing machinery, buying inputs cheap, or whatever it might be. So I'm all for it. I think, farmers it can be sometimes difficult to get them sort of into business together, and I think this could be a really good vehicle for doing that.
I agree, and I think we cannot end up in a world where this is seen as it's for organic farmers or it's for conventional farmers. It's for farmers who want to do the right thing for the environment. And I think, we've had too many occasions in the past where certain people or certain schemes or certain initiatives have driven division between organic and conventional, when actually most farmers, I think, are on a spectrum. And we have some high priests at either end of those spectrums, but ultimately for me, all farmers have got something to learn from other farmers by working together with other farmers, regardless of what your production system is like.
I think you're right. I mean, the only thing I would say, Stuart, is that I feel, and we sort of touched on it earlier, is that I think, the kind of things that we've been delivering organically over the last 20 years, we also have to understand that there are some farming systems that do deliver greater benefits, and that should be recognised, and we shouldn't sort of worry about that. I think the great thing about having a big diversity of farmers is that we can offer food to every price point, to every environmental standard, and actually that gives the customer choice. But let's not be scared about shouting positively about good systems.
And there we have to leave it. Much, much more of this at the Organic Farmer and Growers National Organic Combinable Crops Conference, commonly known as NOC for obvious reasons, which will be here on the 6th of July and available online afterwards. Do join us.